hour difference from Asia, but now we fell back by an hour because it's fall. So it's 80, actually it's 8:02 here
Yes.
on the East Coast of the United States.
Yes, it is 9:02 here in Malaysia. So wonderful having you back. You were on my show a while back, and it's so nice to see you again. What's new?
Oh my gosh. So what's new is that I have been for the last, I guess, year and a half teaching the College to Career Clarity Boot Camp live. So ever
Wow.
since the pandemic hit, I've been teaching it over Zoom. And I've also been doing one on one coaching. And just in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten sign off from two schools here in the United States, one, the University of Maryland's School of Journalism, and the other, smaller school, liberal arts school in Pennsylvania called Dickinson College. And they have agreed to let me pilot my asynchronous course. So I won't be teaching it live. Students can take it at their own pace.
Wonderful.
And the goal is to help them get career clarity. So I'm super excited because my longer term goal, Azif, is to sell this course to colleges and universities because my mission is to empower 1 million college students to turn their degrees into careers they'll love. So I'll have the opportunity to reach even more students.
What a goal! Touching 1 million college students, and we'll get to how, in your roundabout way, in the tremendous careers that you've had uh, in your professional life, to how you got here to helping college students. But we have so many people in the chats right now. We have Shukri from Kota Damansara. We have Sharon, and I think you have a neighbor here. This is my college buddy, Patrick Correa. He's from
Oh,
Fairfax,
in
Virginia.
Fairfax. Yeah. Hi, Patrick.
So Pat went to college with me in Indiana, of all places, right in the Midwest. So we were there a long time ago. But nice to have you on board, Pat. And we have Sharon with Malaysia with Love. Wonderful. So um, Andrea, tell me, uh, what's it like? You're spending most of your time speaking with, interacting with, teaching college students. So,
Mhm.
what's it like being surrounded with them and interacting with them all the time?
Wow, that's a loaded question because, on the one hand, I love young people. I love people of all ages, but I love the optimism and the belief that anything is possible that young people have. But on the flip side, Azif, as we all know, the pandemic has taken a toll. And in fact, for Generation Z, so the young people, actually your son's age, your 13-year-old son's age, my 17-year-old son's age, I think up to age 25, they have been surrounded by grief since they were born. Here in the United States, of course, we had 9/11 20 years ago. So they came into the world. Your son and my son came into a different world. Then we had here in the United States the Great Recession. They watched their parents and grandparents lose jobs or businesses or worry about their future. And of course, I'm speaking from the US context. I'd love to hear from the Malaysian context what you experienced during this time. But we also had a number, oh my gosh, so many school shootings. And then you layer on top of that the Black Lives Matter and most recently the pandemic. And so their whole lives have been punctuated by moments of intense grief. And then because of this, because of their smartphones, and our children have grown up being plugged into their smartphones, they can't escape it. They really can't escape because of social media and texting and all of this. So what I have found among many of the college students and the newly graduated students is that so many of them feel overwhelmed. They feel stuck, and there's a failure to launch. They're afraid of making a mistake. And a wonderful woman who has become a friend, her name is Melissa Douaire, Douaire. She and I have actually co-authored an op-ed that we're going to try to place later this year. And it's about how many of the symptoms of overwhelm and anxiety and failure to launch are also symptoms of grief that has not been processed. And so one of the things, thanks to Melissa, that I'm now aware of, I used to not be able to understand why they would get so flustered so quickly when I would push them harder, the way I had been pushed,
Right. Right.
probably the way you had been pushed, and they just suddenly pulled back from me. I couldn't understand that. So now I'm bringing some of this knowledge into the coaching that I do, because it's really simple to help someone deal with grief in the sense that you just acknowledge it. You see them. It's another way of being kind.
It sure
You're
is.
listening to them. You're acknowledging the emotions that they may be feeling that they didn't understand. So that's the mixed bag that I'm finding with young people. That optimism, that enthusiasm that is there is sometimes hidden
Mhm.
behind layers of grief and anxiety and overwhelm.
Wow. Thanks for putting that in perspective. I have definitely witnessed it and experienced the younger generation having anxiety and having worry and not being able to properly address it and actually not even knowing what's going on, right? They know they're
Yeah.
sad, but they don't know how to deal with it. I'm wondering if this resonates with you, Patrick. He's just saying he has a freshman in high school looking forward to your advice and helping his son or daughter, Patrick, uh, go on to daughter to college. Yeah. So I definitely feel what you're saying. I have three teenagers now that my son is 13, and a
Mm.
21-year-old son in college still. And it is a mixed bag of what they're dealing with today. It's not simple for sure. It's very complex. But I really appreciate what you said. That just listening to them, acknowledging what they're feeling, is a great way of dealing with that. So
Yes.
uh, I do want to go and perhaps at the start of this show, Andrea, some of the audience may have recognized you from CNN, and so since then. Let's talk about your career since you're advising other people on the careers that they love. So, how did you get into broadcasting, and what did you do after that?
Sure. So why don't I start with what I studied in school? I was a political science major,
Okay.
and I also studied Asian studies and Mandarin Chinese. And the reason that I had that field of study is that at the time I thought I wanted to become an American diplomat. I was really interested in other cultures and learning more about them. And I love people, as I mentioned, and I love learning. And I had lived in Hong Kong as a child. So, I was just excited to have a big adventure in my life. And then my senior year, I sat for the Foreign Service exam. And I didn't realize it was something you should study for, and that there was a big piece of current events that would be a part of the exam. And back in the day, Azif, I'm older than you are, we didn't have the smartphone, we didn't have the
The
internet,
Google.
we had the Google, we had Time Magazine and Newsweek magazine. And I didn't read those magazines. And so I failed this exam. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I thought I was going to go into the Foreign Service. And we had some people from the US Peace Corps that came to recruit at my college. And the Peace Corps, for those who may not be familiar with it, is a service organization. You go overseas for 2 years and you do all kinds of things, from maybe digging wells to teaching English to doing all kinds of projects. And I thought, that sounds amazing. It'll be an adventure. And I love the idea of this. And I was accepted to go to Nepal. And August, after I graduated in May, we learned through the grapevine that there had been a number of rapes of American Peace Corps volunteers in Nepal. So I confirmed this, and suddenly I didn't have a plan B, Azif. I had no idea what I was going to do. And magic happened. I believe that we have magical encounters throughout our lives that can change the course of both our professional life and our personal life. So I had one of these magical encounters. A good friend of my parents, who usually lived in China, happened to be in the United States. He had just come from New York City, and he said, "Oh, Andrea doesn't have a job. There's this woman in New York who only hires young women who speak Mandarin Chinese, and she's hiring." This was back in the day after Deng Xiaoping had opened China to the West and was allowing Westerners to come into China to form joint ventures with state-owned enterprises in China. And this woman had a company that helped to bring together Western companies and Chinese state-owned enterprises. I had no interest in business, Azif, but my parents said to me what I'm guessing a number of our viewers have said to their children, and that is, just go interview for the job. You can always turn it down if you get it. Well, I got the job, but I didn't turn it down. And I was on a plane in October flying to China to be a representative for this company. And it was while I was there, Azif, that my friends outside of work were all journalists. And I listened to their stories and I heard what they did during the day. And it sounded so exciting, so meaningful. And after 6 months at that job, I quit. I flew back to the US, and that is how I got into journalism. And I was a journalist for 20 years, the last 14 of them at CNN. I was a foreign correspondent in Japan, and then in China, where I got to use my Chinese again. And then I covered American foreign policy for 8 years. And then I covered domestic politics, the US Capitol. And in 2007, the new president of CNN decided I wasn't his cup of tea or cup of coffee, and he didn't renew my contract. He fired me. And I ended up reinventing myself. I had coffees with people. I met them. I went into public relations for a couple of years. Then I went into the nonprofit world for 7 years. And then I quit that world 4.5 years ago to be a full-time stay-at-home mom with my then 13-year-old, now 17-year-old son. And that's how I decided I wanted to start a podcast called Time for Coffee, in which I interview professionals in dozens of industries about what they do in their jobs and how they built their careers. And it was through the course of doing all of these interviews, Azif, that I saw the cross-cutting patterns that I felt were not being shared with young people, because I created the podcast to help college students so that those who didn't have connections, whose parents didn't have connections, could go on to the Time for Coffee website and listen to these interviews and learn and get amazing career advice from listening to these interviews. And I said, my goodness, I think I need to start coaching and sharing this knowledge that I have. And that's how I started posting on LinkedIn over a year ago. And that's what pulled me into this space.
Wow, what a story and what a journey. To all our viewers, you can get Time for Coffee at everywhere you consume your podcasts. You are up to almost, what, 900 episodes now, Andrea? Wow.
Yes, exactly. And they can also go on to the Time for Coffee website. It's www.time, the number 4, coffee.org. And you can search by industry on the homepage. And I've interviewed so many incredible people, and I would love to interview you, Azif, of course. I've interviewed people who are winemakers, who are scouts in the baseball industry, who are UX, UI designers, who are digital marketing experts of all ages. And I've also interviewed very well known doctors and meditation teachers, because my feeling is, and I'm guessing you'll agree, Azif, because I know that fitness and wellness is an incredibly important part of your life. What good is it to have a job you love if your mental health and your physical health is suffering? So I've tried to bring some of the world's leading experts in brain health, in your physical health, and in your emotional and psychic health, as well as your spiritual health, to our listeners out there as well.
Wow, that is so incredibly important, especially with the audience that you address, which are young college students. I think the earlier they are exposed and know that taking care of themselves is so important, because when we get to be our age, it suddenly makes sense to us. But so much of this I wish I knew when I was in college, or when I was younger, when I was starting my career, and nobody was there to give this advice. And like you said, it obviously was before the internet and before Google. But to all
Yes.
again, to all our viewers, this is an incredible resource. The first time we met and the first time we spoke, I immediately gave that link to my children, as they were evaluating colleges, and as they were talking about, thinking about, fields of study and all of that, and it was incredibly important for them as well. So I recommend everyone take a look at that. It's an incredible resource for everyone. But do you talk to people like you who have reinvented themselves and shifted industries?
Oh my gosh. So many people like me and like you, Azif. Because one of the many things that I've discovered from interviewing hundreds upon hundreds of people is that what you study in school, what you major in school, is not the tiny house that you're going to be forced to live in for the rest of your life. Instead, it's the foundation of a professional skyscraper that you're building over the course of your professional life with each new job and each new career, adding a new floor in your skyscraper. So, what I tell to your friend Pat, whose daughter is going to be going to college at some point, is to encourage her to follow her interests. Don't try to game the system. Don't try to reverse engineer it and push your child to study something that they are not interested in. And you notice that I didn't use the word passion. That's deliberate, because passion and our purpose is something that we discover by doing different jobs, by trying out different types of job functions in different industries, testing. And some you may like, and some you may not like. And the ones that you don't like are not fails. It's not a mistake. The way I describe this to the students I coach, Azif, is that finding the right fit and finding your passion and your purpose is not like following a recipe in a cookbook where you have to have the exact ingredients that they say. So whatever your favorite dish is, you go into your refrigerator, into your cupboard, and you pull out those exact ingredients, and then you mix it up and put it in the oven, and there is your career with a crispy crust. It's more like being a mad scientist who's in a laboratory wearing those big goofy goggles with the Bunsen burner and the test tubes. And what does the mad scientist do? Well, they're putting different ingredients into the test tubes, and sometimes it blows up. That wasn't a mistake. That's part of the experimenting process. That's part of the testing process to find the right formula, because each of us is a unique formula. We're not a recipe. We're not, we have to try different jobs and test them out and experiment. And that is how we find our passion and our purpose. And it's sometimes an incredibly exhilarating process. Sometimes it's a painful process. Like when I was fired from CNN, it was embarrassing. It was humiliating. I felt like I had been rejected because I had, but it turns out to have been an incredible gift, a beautiful gift for me, because the truth is, I had not been happy at CNN for about the last 3 years that I was there. Why? Because I had become a parent. I was now a mother. And the job was all consuming. I was working 24/7, and I never got to spend time, certainly during the week, with my young son. But I was afraid. I was afraid to leave CNN. First of all, because I didn't think there was anything else I could do other than to be a journalist.
Right.
I also was so busy. I didn't have the headspace to dream. I didn't have the time to meet with people for a cup of coffee, to ask them about what they did and to learn more about their profession. So when I was fired, suddenly I had all the time in the world, and I was able to discover that there was a niche inside the public relations field that only worked with nonprofits and foundations. You see, I thought public relations was always working with big corporations. I didn't realize that I could also work for mission driven organizations, because that has been a theme throughout my life. So I discovered that there was this field within public relations that totally resonated with me. So your professional journey is going to be full of joy, and it will be full of painful experiences. But I've also found, and I'd love to hear from you, Aziz, sometimes the best learning experiences are through the painful ones.
For
Because
sure.
if you can sit with the pain, if you can keep from numbing yourself, whether with shopping or eating or drugs or alcohol or any things that are actually hurting your body and your mind, if you can work through that painful experience and push yourself outside your comfort zone, that's when you discover, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I can learn, and how I can grow. It's really incredible. And you learn about the value of transferable skills.
Precisely. I mean, since the first time we spoke, I think, which is why we clicked, because our careers had so many similarities or parallels. I mean, I was never a journalist, but I was fired from my job, just like you were when a new boss came on board, when the new chairman came on board. I was the CEO of this organization, and one day I wasn't. And as you said, going through the fire, and feeling that pain, and understanding that you can do it, and you can get through it, and you can do whatever it takes to take care of your family. And so I've gone through that, and it has made me stronger, and I'm more confident of my ability to get things done and add value no matter where I am. So I totally get what you're saying, and I love all of the analogies you're using. This the skyscraper of our career, and the mad scientist throwing ingredients together. It's wonderful, but I think young people feel that it is kind of cookie cutter, though. They feel that they have an idea of what they want to be, and they think that's it. That's all there is. How do you address that, and how do you explain things to them to make them understand?
Sure, sure. That's such a great question, because I think we all did when we were in school. We all thought that we had to figure out what we were going to do with the rest of our lives right away. And what I tell them is that no, your first job in your first industry is just that. It's a first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. Now, even for those who want to go into medicine or the law, where you need to have advanced degrees, even for those instances, there have been people I've interviewed who, for example, one amazing doctor who is a functional medicine doctor, he's known around the world. His name is Dr. Mark Hyman. He studied Buddhism undergrad at Cornell University. And it wasn't until after he had been out of school for a few years that he decided he wanted to pursue medicine. The same thing with other people who decide they want to study law. There is nothing written in stone. You can evolve. And in fact, I highly recommend, Azif, that for university students, that they not go directly into graduate school. Even if you think you know 100% that you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or another, even a CPA, that you decide you want to go and get a job in that industry. Work, and there's so many different ways to work in medicine. You can work for a company that either a pharmaceutical company, or you can work for a company in the wellness space. You can work for a doctor, maybe as an administrative assistant, and be with them and observe them. See, test it, try it before you get further into debt. Because going into graduate school is not something that, my goodness, you want to do right away before you've had an opportunity to really kind of test drive that job, that industry for at least a couple of years. And you know what happens? I mentioned magic early on. Some people might call it serendipity. I like magic because when you get into a particular job in a company or an organization, you may discover, I don't like this job that I'm doing, but wow, what that person in that other department is doing, that looks really interesting. You couldn't know that until you started working at that company and were exposed to other types of job functions. And that is what happens throughout our life. You're going to discover different jobs, different types of job functions, different types of industries that may not even exist right now. So you don't know what you don't know. So just start with that first step and learn. Try to soak up as much as you can. And if it isn't the right fit, no problem. You've got transferable skills. Where are your interests? I always say that your interests should be your North Star. That's where you want to go. That's what you want to follow. And ideally, if you can find, if you're a mission driven person, that doesn't mean that you have to go into the nonprofit world or you have to go work for some kind of service related industry. There are all types of companies that are for profit, that have missions, that have different ways they want to impact the world. You can work for a company that's doing green energy and it's a for-profit company, but it could be very meaningful to you because especially this younger generation are very motivated to try to reduce global warming and try to improve the environment. So there are all different ways that you can have a mission and an impact in the work that you're doing. And research has shown that if you feel that alignment, you're more likely to have more job satisfaction.
Right. Um, I love the fact that your resource, Time for Coffee, allows people that, like you were saying, sit and observe and see what's going on in other departments and get that job first. But even without that, like, vicariously, they can go to your website and listen to all these stories from all these professionals that you've interviewed. So I think that's fantastic. A quick shout out to Annie, who is also a broadcast journalist here in Malaysia, all the way from Ampang. And we would love to hear everyone's comments and questions in the chat. So if you have any questions from Andrea, for Andrea, anything you want me to raise or want us to discuss, please do put that in the chat. Pat has said, and is his understanding correct? Is do you just be a generalist for now as you start your career?
I just saw that comment as well, and I was going to call that out. I'm so glad you did, Azif. So I am actually 3/4 of the way through a fabulous book that I highly, highly recommend called Range, Range. And the author's name is escaping me. The book is in the other room, forgive me. But it is about, and all of his research, making the case for why it is better to be a generalist than to be a specialist. And for companies, when they want innovation, They want to expand the circle of people that they bring into the process of thinking through problem solving and thinking through where the company wants to be and how to evolve. Because when you have people with the same sets of expertise and the same narrow range of specialty, that's not how you're going to break through and find the solution. It's usually when you bring people from a variety of different backgrounds. And this is why diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important, right?
Exactly.
Different life experiences, different uh, educational
Different
experiences,
perspectives. Yeah, for sure.
different perspectives. This is the way that you build the kind of company that is going to be ready for the future.
Wow. At this point in our show, Andrea, we typically play a little game, which is called This or
Oh,
That. You have no idea that we're going to do this to you, but
no, I
it's
didn't.
it's really you just choosing this or that, and this allows us, the audience, to know you a little better. So I think I know the answer to this, but coffee or tea?
Okay, so let me figure out. If I say coffee, is it this?
Yes. Well, no, you just say either coffee
Or,
or tea.
oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was supposed to say this or that. Well, I love coffee, but right now I'm drinking matcha tea.
Wow. Green tea. There you go.
Yes,
Nice. Next question: sunset or sunrise?
sunset.
They're so beautiful, aren't they? Beautiful sunsets.
Well,
Uh,
you know why I said that? Because I
why?
don't want to get up early enough.
For the sunrise.
When I'm up and I see the sunrise, sometimes it's mind-blowingly beautiful,
Yes.
but I'm not quite as much of an early bird as you are, as you.
I do enjoy waking up in the morning and seeing the sunrise for sure.
Mm,
Would you be at a waterfall or the beach?
hmm. Probably the beach.
Yep, the beach is nice. Um, convertible or motorcycle?
Wow. Oh my gosh. Both sound amazing. I would say convertible.
Wow, top down.
Top down,
Yeah,
absolutely.
wind in your hair. Wow, that would be amazing. So, thank you for playing that little game, Andrea. We have, again, so many people in the audience from all over the world, and thank you so much for coming on board. Pat is saying David Epstein. Is that who the author of that book is?
Ah, thank you. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
That's who the author is. It was a New York Times bestseller. It came out 2 years ago. It's absolutely fascinating. There's lots of research in there that backs up this case.
Wow. So where do you see, you were saying with the pandemic and how things are moving, how things are going, the great resignation that has seen more than 4 million Americans resign from their jobs. And how is that impacting, what you're saying to students or fresh graduates about finding work? Is that a topic that is raised?
So they're not asking me about that specifically, but I would say it's further proof because most of those who are quitting their jobs are farther along in their professional lives.
Right.
Maybe they have children, maybe they're just deciding, grinding it out day in, day out, doing work that I don't find meaningful, that isn't giving me work life balance, is not worth it. So I'm actually helping my students get a jump on that because I am telling them don't follow where you think your parents want you to go. And I'm sorry to all the well-intentioned parents out there. The reason that I tell my students this is that as much love and as much good and well-intentioned advice that you're imparting to your child, it is layered with anxiety and fear. That is really the strongest emotion that is coming through. It's your fear that if they don't go into such and such a field or such and such a job, they're not going to have a successful professional life. You're afraid they might fail. You're afraid they might experience pain. And that is not the right way to be launching your child. They need to have their interests, what really lights them up, front and center, guiding them. And then their skills, their hard skills, their soft skills, and what I call their superpowers. This is based on what Dr. Howard Gardner coined. He did not coin superpower, but he coined the 8 intelligences about 40 years ago. What he said is the IQ test, the intelligence test, is too narrow a measure of someone's intelligence, because that's just taking a test. Are you good at test taking? And what makes us special, what makes us unique, are these natural gifts, you could say God-given gifts that we're born with. And so many of us dismiss them because they come easily to us, whether it's your ability to dance, to move your body, your ability to play sports, your ability to play musical instruments or sing or compose music or direct or communicate or interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills. There are so many gifts that we have that we've dismissed. So I help students recognize that they have their hard skills, their soft skills, their superpower, and that helps them identify the right type of job function for them. And then their interests are aligned with industry. And the job functions are cross-cutting into every industry out there. So those students who are stuck, who are confused, who are overwhelmed, suddenly realize that the world is their oyster. They can take these skills that they have and follow them into the industry that aligns with their interests and also aligns with who they are as a human being in terms of the mission, whether they have certain financial needs, of course, everyone does, that they need to reach, and whether or not they want to have an adventure the way I did. So maybe having a desk job where they're sitting 8 hours a day is not the right fit for them, or they want to live in another country, or perhaps they do want to sit in front of a computer. There are plenty of people who are introverts who prefer not having a lot of interaction with people. So I help them identify the right types of jobs for them. And then I also teach them modern job seeking tools, tactics, and strategies to find those jobs. So LinkedIn, as you and I both know, Azif, is the most extraordinary job seeking platform if you know how to use it. It can also be a huge time suck. You can go into it and waste a tremendous amount of time. But if you know how to leverage this extraordinary platform, it can become a time saver so that you can focus your job seeking.
I was just going to ask you about this because we did say that we were going to speak about these modern job search tools. So, what would you say would be the go to for young people who are seeking out jobs?
100%. I would say it's LinkedIn, but I'm going to give away something right here that our viewers can use immediately. If you're in school, if your son or daughter or child is in school or newly graduated, or you are an older job seeker, use your alumni network. Go into the search window of LinkedIn and type in the name of your school. You want to say, let's say it's the University of Maryland. You would go to the University of Maryland's main page. Click on that. And then there are different tabs. It says about, it says people. You want to click on alumni. After you have pulled up all the alumni who are in your school network on LinkedIn, there are different filters that you can use to narrow that focus. You can filter by year. You can filter by city. And if you don't see the right city, you can add the city there and search. You can filter by company. Now, not all companies will necessarily be there, but you can also add a company that you don't see. Then you page over, it says next, click next, and then you'll see there are different roles that these people have. So their job functions are listed there. And then you can see their major when they were in school. And then when you page over, they also talk about I think their strengths, where they see the type of skills that they have. So you can use these filters to narrow the focus. This is automatically a connection that you and the person you're going to reach out to share in common. You are either at the same school, you went to the same school, you have the same major. So I recommend that you filter by what they're doing now and the company, let's say your target companies, and then scroll down on the page and you're going to see all of the people that fall within that range. And you can see what they're doing. Some of them are at those companies now in the roles. For young people, I recommend, for those who are in school, newly graduated, do not reach out for the Aziz Mustafas of the world. You want to be reaching out for people who are really within 1 to 5 years of your age. Why do I say that? First of all, it's much more likely they're going to accept your connection request. Secondly, you want to learn how they got into that company, how they got that role. They are also much more likely to want to help you, and their experience is super recent. So they can give you incredible insights and advice, and they are on the inside of that company. 80% of jobs are not posted. They're not on job boards like LinkedIn, like ZipRecruiter, like Monster, all of these job boards. They are hidden. What do I mean by that? Well, it may be that they're going to fill this role, but the person hasn't left the job yet. That person you reach out to can have that kind of information. It may be that somebody is in the role right now and they're going to get fired. They don't know it yet, but you'll reach out. That person will know you. So when that announcement is made, They'll think of you. You'll be front of mind for them. It may be that there's money in the budget for the next quarter to post a job that's going to be a good fit for you, but it hasn't been posted yet. And it could be, and this has happened to me personally, Aziz, that once you meet people at that company, they will like you so much, they could create a role for you. And that's what happened to me after I left CNN. And I discovered that there was this niche within public relations that only work with nonprofits and foundations. I met the CEO for coffee just to learn about his company. And he liked me so much. He said, you know what? We actually have somebody in this role right now, but I think you are the person we've been looking for to fill this role. So I ended up getting this job that I didn't even know existed because it hadn't been posted yet. So this is the way that you will build your network, that you're going to get your brand, your name out there. You're also going to ask them for recommendations of who else you should be speaking with when you talk to this person, and ask them for their recommendations. And then you're going to reach out to those people. This is how you'll uncover the hidden jobs that exist and build your reputation in your network.
Wow, that is such amazing advice. And LinkedIn truly is this hidden search uh,
Mm.
function that we can really zoom into people that you really want to get in touch with. One thing that I would say, you're right that it's much more likely for people to connect with you if you're closer to their age range or you have more in common. However, uh, LinkedIn allows you to reach out to anyone. So if you did want to reach out to a VP or a senior VP or a director or a CEO, you can do so, especially if you do have something in common, especially if you went to the same school, especially if you have the same major, for example, and you can say, I really look up to you and I really would like to learn how you got there. And, there's really a lot of different strategies and tactics you could use. But if only young people would use all of these tools that are available. And it's great that you're teaching them how to do this. A lot of universities invite me to speak and talk about
Oh,
LinkedIn
great. Yes.
in particular, because I would really, really just, if I could, I would force students to just get a LinkedIn handle and start building their profile and just start sharing and creating content on the platform because it's just totally amazing. So, uh,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, is it almost an hour that we have been chatting? Time
Oh,
flies. It
wow.
is,
It sure does.
it's
It
amazing.
sure does.
So,
May I
Andrea,
add one more bit
please.
of advice? Because I also want those who are thinking about connecting to do one bit of due diligence. See if that person is active on LinkedIn.
Right.
All right, go to their activity portion on their profile, click that, and see when they last liked someone's post or when they last posted a comment. It's better to see because more people will like or maybe comment on another post than actually create original content. But make sure to check that because some people have a profile and they're not active on it. So here is another bit of advice. You can find somebody's email address by using this hack. Type Hunter, HUNTER .io into the Google search bar. And then put in the name of the company. And they will show you what the formula is for that company's email. Sometimes it's a first letter with the
First
last
name,
name.
last
Sometimes
name.
it's
Yeah.
the first name. Yes, exactly. So it might be better for you to email that person to ask them if they would be free to have a 20-minute conversation with you so you can learn more about what they do. So just double check before you try to connect, because they may not respond if they're not active.
Great hack and a great tip. One piece of factoid that I found out was that out of the 800 million, I think, users now on LinkedIn, only about half of them, 50%, are actually active or
Mm,
actually come onto the platform once a month. So that's only
oh,
half. But out of those 400 million active users, only 1%, Andrea, actually post a piece of content once a week. So can you imagine if you post something once a week, you are immediately thrust into the top 1% of users of LinkedIn. So I would highly recommend people who are viewing right now to just grab something from this that you're watching right now, grab a screen cap, post it, and say three things I learned from Andrea Koppel from this talk tonight, because that piece of content that you just created will be so much more valuable, and suddenly you're in the top users of this entire platform. So with that, Andrea, I really hate to do this, but I would like to get a bit of maybe your key takeaways from our conversation tonight as a wrap up, and we need to end the show soon.
so I'll give three of the takeaways. Whatever you study in school is just the starting point, it's not the end point. Wherever you start your career is not going to lock you into a particular industry. It is, again, just the starting point. And you have the world at your fingertips to make connections and to explore all the different kinds of careers and jobs that will light you up right here on this amazing platform of LinkedIn. And hopefully, you now have a way to connect with, first of all, I hope they reach out and connect with me and follow me on LinkedIn. And I know they're following you, Azif, but get started. Get started today, because this experience of building your network and exploring and learning is something that is going to benefit you for years and years to come.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea, for spending all of this time with us tonight or today, wherever you are. It's wonderful seeing you again and wonderful catching up. I hope we will
Likewise.
do this again. And I would be deeply honored if you were to invite me on your podcast,
I
Time for
will.
Coffee.
I will,
And I
absolutely.
will tell you more about this platform I'm using right now, which is Restream. I really feel you should do your interviews live as we're doing right now,
Ah,
and then edit it into podcast, because then you will have two different content modes that you can then reuse on different platforms. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in thanking Andrea for being here with us. It was a wonderful
oh,
time. Thank you so much.
thank you
I
so much.
truly appreciate you, Andrea. Thank you.
It has been such a gift. Thank you so much, Aziz.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care. Please stay
Bye.
safe. Bye bye. And stay kind. Bye bye. Good night.